Hello and welcome to another video edition of the Fuel Podcast, and I'm your host, a Smith called Keith. Now, you may be familiar with the phrase, never bring opinions to a data fight, and my guest this week, Ben Salmon, certainly is, especially when it comes to e-commerce. The pandemic, various lockdowns and the patchy recovery has forced many companies to turn to e-commerce for their salvation. But as an agency or as a client, if you thought you could wing it on traditional marketing nous, gut feelings and media metrics, then the bad news is your days are numbered. The good news is Ben's written a book. Ben and his colleagues Peter Abram, Tim Shaw and Jessica Hopkins have put together this rather splendid Bible, Your Numbers Up, a thoroughly modern look at e-commerce performance. Because Ben's mission is to get every company to be able to report their digital revenue as a percentage of their total revenue. This is a fascinating show because not only do we discuss how companies can start reporting numbers that actually mean something in the boardroom, but we look at some of the high street stars and see if they crashed and burned in the digital space. If you like the show, hit the like button, and if you want to see more of these sorts of videos, please hit the subscribe button, and that will give us some numbers that we can look at. In the meantime, thank you for watching and enjoy the show. Hello everyone. If your business relies on digital as part of total revenue, or your agency works in the digital space for its clients, then there's a good chance that you're not maximising the opportunity and you're letting the wrong data drive your decisions. If you want a deep in the weeds discussion on the finer points of e-commerce and data, then this is not the show for you. What I can promise you though is some very enthusiastic questioning from one of the foremost authorities on e-commerce and digital marketing. And by the end of this show, you'll have a clear understanding of the steps that your company or your clients need to make sure you've got digital marketing and your sales lined up correctly. So let's get into it. In the constantly evolving world of digital marketing, we are always bombarded with new and interesting ways to view data. Things that make great talking points but fail to cut the mustard in the boardroom. Like a Big Mac's empty calories in your diet, they just tide you over, but they leave you starving again in an hour. Still on the food theme, we've nibbled around the edges of this discussion with a number of guests on the podcast, but we've never taken such a huge bite out of the world of digital media as we're about to now. Because Ben Salmon is 1/3 of the team at e-commerce solutions agency Crank and 1/4 of the team that's just written a wonderful book that breaks down the e-commerce dilemma for everyone. The book, Your Numbers Up, is less of a book and more of a Bible, and it's a total mic drop in terms of how you should be using data to grow your e-commerce channel. Digital media planners, stay tuned because Ben's probably going to blow up your strategy in the most engaging and entertaining of ways. The sharp turn that all retailers were forced to take at the start of the pandemic means that greater emphasis has been placed on the role of e-commerce on the balance sheet, and Ben and his team are here to help you decipher the bullshit. Focus on the numbers that matter and embrace e-commerce measurements so you can grow yours or your client's business more effectively. Ben specialises in making the unintelligible and overcomplicated simple and powerful. An hour of your time now will have you holding court among your peers like an e-commerce oracle. Welcome to the show, Ben Salmon.
Thank you, Keith. Really appreciate the introduction. I'm laughing all the way through it. I'm like going, what's coming next?
Well, it's lovely to have you on board, Ben. Thank you very much indeed for your time as well. And I got to say, I can't believe what a magnificent read this book is. And I did the analogy that if e-commerce was a car, then you've just produced the Haynes manual.
Yeah, hopefully, but that everyone can understand. That is want to make it accessible, so it's not too. As much as I am a geek, hopefully the language and the content's accessible by all.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, put it this way: if I can read it and understand it, then you've definitely hit the mark. So congratulations as far as that's concerned. And it is a brilliantly put together, nicely designed book as well. It's not your standard book. It's a different size and everything, isn't it? I mean, it's an unusual size.
Yeah, so we went with a slightly different format. I mean, hats off to Jessica Hopkins for making my dyslexia readable and understandable and intelligible, and making it a story that's got no, hopefully limited typos. I'm sure there are typos throughout, Tim Shaw for technical expertise and advice advice and guidance on what's possible, what's not possible within Google Analytics, and Pete Abraham, who co-wrote and helped with all the design, the layout, and making sure it was fairly easy to follow. But yeah, the whole idea was, data's seen as can be quite a dry subject.
Sure.
So how do you take quite a dry subject and quite a dry format, as in a normal portrait size black and white book, and try and turn it on its head? And that's the whole idea. So it's a couple of people have described it as being kind of quite PowerPoint or Keynote-esque. It's a square format, and it's very colorful and lots of drawings and images to try and keep people with a short attention span able to dive in, read their bit, and then come back out.
Well, yeah, and we'll go through the various components of the book as well, because there's excuse me, there's a lot of really good kind of access points to it as well. But I mean, so congratulations to everybody, and good for you, Ben, for giving them all a name check. Just to set the scene, the pandemic really, I mean, we've been talking about this as well. The pandemic kind of made every retailer kind of pivot, and some of them did it less well than others, because in the archive of all kind of retail knowledge, I mean, e-commerce is still, it's an unfinished chapter. It's not been written fully yet. So not many kind of everyday, everyman mum and pup retailers, mum and pup, they've all got dogs, but mum and pop retailers need to understood kind of what was needed to to grow and how to manage that growth. But now that you've written the book, looking back, I mean, was there any sense that the clues to all this were kind of already solved, but they haven't really been put into an e-commerce sort of context? I mean, sort of was retailing ready for this? Could it apply some of the lessons it's already learned into what just happened?
I mean, some of the organizations were prepared more through luck than planning. So right. They had, for example, managed to get the logistics in place so that they get their products out to customers in time. So some of them were pretty well prepared and they did well. Others were just utterly broken and incompetent, and they fell by the wayside, like Laura Ashley. And I think what the pandemic has done is accelerated, if you kind of the Darwinism of e-commerce, that like the strongest will survive. Those that were prepared, that invested in digital, that took it seriously, that 5 years ago weren't doing a store rollout plan, but actually invested in digital and put their money into kind of digital because they knew that's where the growth and the opportunity was. And more importantly, it wasn't just about revenue. So the revenue contribution could have been a lot less, but the overall profit contribution was a lot more. So the people that have won out and done amazingly well have seen the results or the fruits of their labor when, for example, looking at Next, they made a profit. That's like, wow, they've made a profit in a year when their retail business lost 200 million. Their online business made a profit of 470 million. So it's like, that overall they're a profitable business, whereas others have had all sorts of wobbly problems. Primark, there's questions around, should they deliver, should they not deliver? Do they, they don't even allow you to do a store locator link to a product and do stock levels. They won't allow you to do click and collect. They literally have a shop window and you can't even do, that's it, that's our product. And they've had a tough year.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I think the lessons could be learned, or could be brought could be applied to pretty much every retailer in the UK, in terms of, sort of ones that did and didn't sort of respond correctly. And I think you put it in very, very clear language about, access, sort of how much profit they made online versus how much they made offline and stuff. And it's a very clear demonstration of what we've all been talking about. But I mean, it's littered with facts as well, the book as well. And I just wanted to just cover up something that sort of struck me, sort of slapped me in the face, was, the difference between the the people that spend money using a desktop computer and those on a mobile. I mean, it never really struck me. I mean, something as obvious as that. I mean, could you just explain that for people that didn't know?
So it's really funny that we kind of, everyone's accepted like mobile is typically the device type of choice, and it's probably, lots of websites we see is pretty much parity, 50% 50% traffic, 50% mobile. We went through this user experience explosion of making screen sizes adjust and be easily seen on mobile. People have got all sorts of words for it, whether it's adaptive design or what's really interesting is what we've done is we've taken a really big screen and stuffed it onto a small screen. Perfect. Well done. Congratulations. The screen is now a lot smaller and it renders beautifully, and you can see the images. And oh, by the way, the buy now button isn't off to the right-hand side, right? That's step one. Do you know what the absolute crazy thing is? That no one is taking the insight from their transactional data from a mobile user versus a desktop user and then applying it to the mobile and desktop experience. So here's an example. We've analyzed lots of data from lots of different brands that we work with over the years. And as a general rule of thumb, pretty much all of them, mobile visitors convert worse and they spend less. That's just a general thing. Furthermore, mobile visitors tend to buy products that, based on that, are things that require less consideration. One might call it, they give a shit less about that product. For example, a white t-shirt, or for example, a pair of black jeans, or for example, a cap. You know what it looks like. You can see what it looks like. Do you like it? Bang, consumable. Thanks very much. Bought the product. And those items tend to be a little bit cheaper. Hence, because they give less of a shit, it doesn't matter whether the product turns up and they don't like it. They can send it back, of course, or they can just wear it, or it doesn't really matter. The exact opposite is with desktop. So what you find is the products tend to be more expensive. The exact opposite is true when you look at the desktop. So you find the products tend to be slightly more expensive and slightly more considered. So they might be buying, for example, suits, or they might be looking at products that require more considerations. Take a furniture manufacturer. One example might be mobile. You should be selling kids products, soft furnishings, and maybe sideboards that are just going in the bathroom. On the desktop, it's dining suites, it's double beds, it might be large cupboards and things like that are fundamentally more expensive products but require more consideration. So with that in mind, when you visit a website on mobile and desktop, and I think everyone should do this, I've just done it actually for a brand very recently, a luxury clothing brand, and I'm going to name check them, Ralph Lauren. You look at the website on Ralph Lauren, the content that you see on mobile is exactly the same as the content you see on desktop. Beautifully aligned, looks wonderful, screens load quickly. I would put money on the fact, and I'd love someone from Ralph Lauren to challenge me, I would put money on the fact that the mobile audience are buying a completely different set of products than the desktop customer, and that the homepage or the landing pages that people visit on when they go to the e-commerce sites should be merchandised completely differently. They shouldn't be the same at all.
I guess it's the same analogy that you might use that like Tesco used between their big supermarkets and their little convenience stores. They were merchandised differently.
Exactly. They're taking quite a lot of data and complex information and presenting a result. I mean, store merchandising is not necessarily a new concept, and online merchandising is done by amazing brands like ASOS, and they have a whole team doing it. But what's funny is just by adding one tiny data point, which is device, it changes the whole experience. I haven't even gone off on one talking about people that live in Alaska versus people that live in Bogota, or people that live in Cape Town versus people live in London. I'm sure if it's a global brand, you might find you merchandise it differently again. But just with one tiny data point, such as device, you're getting such vast volumes of insight.
But this is what I was talking about at the start of the show in terms of what knowledge is already there from retailers. I mean, because people have been merchandising for different size stores for centuries. I mean, it's not an unusual thing. So now you're talking about a complete distinction in terms of merchandising between a desktop and a mobile, because they're two different customers. They buy different things at different times.
And you know, the buying patterns, like, this is without going super crazy and going into the weeds of like mind blowing, but quite frequently before the pandemic, the mobile audience would be browsing at a different time to the desktop audience. Therefore, my media should be placed at a different time. So yes, if you like the commuter belt of 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. and then the kind of going home from 6 p.m. through to 8 p.m. That's when your mobile audience are online, whereas actually you find a massive spike in the middle of the day on the desktop audience. My media shouldn't be, I switch it on at 8 a.m. and I switch it off at 10 p.m. It should actually be adjusted to that as well. But I mean, we're going off on one now.
I know. I've just realised we're actually doing what I said we weren't going to do, which is get into the weeds. But there we go. But I mean, okay. Look, I'm just going to backtrack slightly in terms of the book, and I wanted to come up with a sort of a grand analogy, because it's almost to me like sort of that this is like the equivalent of a map of the world to a sailor, from back in the 1700s. It's like the good thing about the book, and what I find great about it, is that no matter where you are on the kind of evolutionary scale of retailing, it very, very clearly sets out how to pinpoint where you are and what next steps you need to make. So whether you're at the start of the curve, or whether you're halfway through, or whether you're a tip-top retailer, there's actually next step points to it, and you can actually pinpoint where you are. So what I really wanted to do, if it's okay, was just take a moment just to pick out some of the main points, just so the listeners can connect the dots, because I don't want to sell the book. We didn't come on just to sell the book. I wanted to talk to you about e-commerce in general. But I mean, there's a couple of points on there that I wanted to go through. So the section that says knowing where you are, okay, very important point in all marketing and all sales, is to know where you start from. Okay, and you say that there are 4 levels of e-commerce measurement maturity, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you just take us from level 1 to 4 and what kind of challenges they're going to be facing?
Yeah, sure. So that was probably the hardest bit, because as brands evolve and they become more sophisticated in e-commerce, they get more data and more metrics.
Right.
So when you're starting out on this, you think you have to measure everything, but the reality is you haven't got half the data. So where do you start? So we created this idea of the 4 levels of measurement. Level 1 is traffic visibility. So you have visibility of where your audience is coming from, how many people are visiting you, what they're looking at, what's popular, what content or what products are popular, and if you're recording it, what outcomes there are. And we always talk about outcomes, right? And the outcome for them might be getting in touch or doing a store search at that level. But at the traffic visibility level, I'll describe it as a brand site. So I'm actually not going to talk about the one in the book, but I'm going to pick on someone else. So I'm going to pick on Dove from Unilever. Go to the Unilever site, pretty good. I mean, it kind of shows you the products. You click on them. I want to buy that. Great. Yeah, you can buy it from these retailers. So I now have to go off the site and go somewhere else. So it's a traffic visibility site. I mean, the insight they'll get is what products are popular and how many visitors they're coming to the website, but they're not getting any sales off the back of it. So that's kind of level 1.
And that's just basic analytics, right? I mean, if you have Google Analytics, that's what that'll give you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you haven't really put much effort in at this stage. You've kind of just gone, we've got a website, we've put Google Analytics on there, and we might, but quite often not, but we might be tracking outcomes, whether they've done a store search or clicked off to another site or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
The next one is transactional visibility. And what you'll find here, this is the first time when you're really starting to invest in analytics and spend time looking at how well your store is performing. So you are probably new to e-commerce, or you have a few number of products. You don't have 20 or 30,000 SKUs or number of variations. So that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. You are able to, in that environment, see how much money you've made. You're able to see average order value. So how much a customer's spending on average. And you're able to really understand whether campaigns are working or not, and whether those campaigns are profitable or not. And when I say campaigns, I'm not talking about the cost of the product. I'm talking about, the cost of advertising to get people to the site.
Right.
So that's kind of level number 2. And you might find, a random, very left field, but a random brand might be someone like Spotify. They're selling subscriptions. They haven't got hundreds and different of products. They want to get people to a website. Are people signing up? What content do they look at? And did they sign up? Pretty straightforward. The next level starts to get into more detail, which is moving from the transactional visibility. The next level is shopping visibility. And that's all about allowing people to understand shopping behavior. So which categories were popular, which subcategories were popular. If we analyze the data, can we see bundles? Is there opportunities for bundle this product with this product because they tend to be purchased together? Are we finding people abandoning the journey? Are they starting the checkout and then leaving? Why is that? Is it because cost of delivery is too much? Is it because they're price checking? So the whole shopping visibility level is for those brands pretty well known, established brands are doing lots and lots and lots of transactional analysis. But at this stage, they haven't looked at any of the content, which is kind of the content and the interactions that people make on the site. They haven't connected those dots. So they're measuring and analyzing transactional behavior. We can probably name loads of brands. Let's choose someone different. It's a good question. I'm actually going to find someone from the book for you because I haven't got one that just falls off the tongue, but someone like Argos or Sports Direct, probably more Sports Direct, like large volumes. I'm not going to choose someone like Target or Walmart just because of the nature of the brands. They've changed recently, and they're kind of investment. But they're okay, right? They're seeing shopping behavior. They know where the campaigns are profitable. They know the high value, low value customers. They know what those segments look like in terms of spend patterns. They know, do my best customers come from email? Do my best customers come from Facebook? I can answer all those questions. But typically they kind of stop there. They don't take it to the next level. And the next level is a pretty ambiguous term for me, but is kind of, I call it engagement visibility. And it's being able to categorize non-transactional behavior. So as you move up the ladder of maturity, you're consuming all the previous steps, right? So that's kind of a given. The top level is engagement visibility. So now let's think about all the non-transactional behavior. Transactional behavior, that was easy. That was the shopping level. Done that, tick, next. The engagement visibility is all about all the stuff people did that didn't result in a transaction. Did they watch videos? Did they use your size selecting tool? Did they sign up to your newsletter? Did they add an item to wish list? Did they share something with a friend?
So widgets and add-ons and sort of rich content stuff, right?
Exactly. So then you start to ask yourself, the challenges these organizations have, although arguably being the top maturity level, they probably have none, is quite often lots of that information's not really looked at. So ASOS always used to talk about lots of customers that used to look at their kind of what's new or their lookbook, but they didn't purchase those products. They kind of inspired them, looked at it, and then they came back and purchased another product. And one of their merchandisers there used to say to me, Chioma, and she always used to make me laugh. She said, if we let computers optimize all of our channels, we would literally have white and black t-shirts because they're the most popular, but it doesn't really inspire anyone. People aren't interested. So at this engagement level, what we're trying to understand is, do people that wish list products, do they come back? Do they purchase? Do people that sign up to your newsletter, are they more engaged? Do they spend more? What type of content are people looking at and engaging with? Do videos have a positive or negative impact? Does having sizing information on the product page help or hinder a sale? does, I mean, we can go on, like what kind of landing page. So think of all the content that brands create. They create some amazing content. Do they then look at whether that content drives a sale, or whether that content drives a repeat visit, or whether that content never delivers any sales at all? So it's all about understanding the impact of course, it needs to result in money, but we're not measuring that. We're measuring the engagement, the non-transactional behavior. And actually, if being really harsh, hiving that off and then looking at it in its own right. Because I think you get to a certain level as a brand and you start to invest in content marketing, you start to invest in very rich content and other things.
Right. And okay, well, on the subject of revenue, the other thing I wanted to kind of touch on was, I mean, something that I found very interesting is that there is, you know, people talk about a digital spend. They talk about, we're spending X amount of, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, whatever on digital. But I mean, you've identified that there's like a, 20, 30, 40 different buckets of revenue that people, that companies, sort of need to be mindful of. I mean, what are the kind of I'd probably ask, what are the big buckets that companies need to consider? I mean, and how do you prioritize them? And how much money do you need to do? I mean, it's an incredibly mind-boggling thing. I mean, what are the basics that people need to, or that companies need to look at?
So the first thing I'd say is that averages lie and they hide the truth. So if you're working on an average conversion rate of 2% and an average order value of £40 and an average cost per acquisition of 15 quid, dollars, whatever, euros, that's fine, right? That gives you at least a comparison point. But if you're building your business decisions off that, that's like game over. So what's a challenge is if you think about it, the things that we can control are, as a marketing person, I can control where I spend my money in advertising to get people in, and arguably the offers and the products that I'm going to promote or sell. And not always, you don't always have to have them discounted, but I'm going to highlight them. What's really challenging, I think, for senior leaders is, certainly if they're not digitally literate, is understanding there's quite a lot of places you can spend that money. So let's just unpack social just as an example. So you might have 3 or 4 social networks. You might have money being spent in Facebook, Instagram, maybe TikTok, and Twitter or Snapchat, depends on the brand really. But let's just say we've got those 4 channels. Now those 4 become 8 when you split out organic versus paid. Some of it's paid for, it's adverts. And let's put boosted posts, let's put that in the organic bucket, although I'm paying for them. But the organic is I'm going for my brand, for people that follow me. Paid is I'm reaching people that don't necessarily follow me, new audiences. Right, so I've now got 8. Well, then that 8 becomes 16 when you split it on mobile and desktop. Now, we haven't even tried to be the clever dick that's gone, yeah, but what you didn't do is you didn't do offer comparison. Was it buy one, get one free, £10 off? Or was it free delivery that made a difference? Oh, by the way, was it the picture of the cat or the picture of the dog or picture of the chicken that made the difference? And was it the ad format that was video, or the ad format that was a banner, or the ad format that was, I don't know, the carousel that made a difference? Great. If you're measuring all of that, knock yourself out. You just added 30 levels of complexity just to that one example. So I'm not saying you need to go down to that level, but what's funny is as you would expect in every business, some stuff is really good. Some stuff is pretty average and some stuff is terrible. And it will happen with campaigns. There'll be campaigns that are absolutely mega and campaigns that are absolute utter rubbish.
Right.
But if you look at that average conversion rate of 2% and 60 quid average order value and £15 cost per acquisition, it's only when you then go, but how did that work on Facebook for our paid campaign that was on mobile and the campaign name was A versus campaign name would B? You're like, whoa, I'm leaking a hole there. I need to fix that hole. And it's only when you get down, and it's really hard, right? Because you've got all of these channels. We haven't started talking about affiliates. We haven't started talking about email or display advertising or we haven't started talking about Google or Bing as paid channels. We've just picked on one example of that could happen.
So are we, I mean, without the danger of completely oversimplifying everything, I mean, are we making it too difficult to be able to know what we're spending and what's working?
I think the worry is there's lots of places you can spend the money. The big challenge I find is that people are spending the money and quite often saying, that's what we did last year, so just add 20%. And they're not looking at the results. And look, there are some brilliant analysts out there that are doing incredible work, but their voice isn't getting heard, either because no one's asking the right questions, or because they aren't able to translate it into actionable things that require change. So I had an example with a brand, which I will not mention. And we were talking about screen size, and we were talking about the example, we were talking, mobile versus desktop. And we were saying, look, generally speaking, the smaller screen, the mobile people, they tend to buy this product, and the desktop people tend to buy this product. And we said, look, when you're doing your Google Ads campaigns, promote these products on desktop and target those, and these products on mobile. Pretty simple action. We went back for our next trading meeting, and the analyst said, well, I've done lots of analysis and I figured it all out. And basically, depending on the number of pixels on the screen, it really makes a massive difference to the products that people are buying. We're like, great, okay. So we should target the Samsung Galaxy S10 by this, and we should target the Google Pixel Phone 5 like this, and the people that are on Apple iPhone 5s like this. I'm like, okay, what products are we going to sell them? Oh, I don't know that. I just know that the conversion rate's worse on each.
Right.
Like it's meaningless. So I think brands need to be able to measure that stuff, but ask the right questions that they can then action. So I know I can target people on mobile, on desktop in Google Ads. So if I know that, I could probably change what campaigns I send or what products I promote.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's great. And I didn't want to sort of. I hope that's kind of explained the situation a little bit more clearly for people. But I mean, needless to say, it's all in the book, and we obviously don't want to sort of blow all the content that you've spent obviously a huge amount of time putting together. So anyway, but I wanted to cover. You sent me a couple of emails, which which made me kind of stop in my tracks, because obviously being based in the US, you sent me a US version and a UK version, and this was your I think they were called State of the Nation analysis emails, and one of the most interesting things that you mentioned, and I was absolutely gobsmacked, is that in terms of market maturity now, the UK is ahead of the USA, because in the USA you say that the average digital revenue as a percentage of overall revenue is at 14%, while in the UK it's 28%. I mean, how's that happened?
So it is crazy to think that, isn't it? You just think, what's going on there? Why are those numbers so high? And, what's happened over the last X number of years? Because you hear about like Amazon, you hear about Target, and you hear about Walmart and all these brands doing great things. But what's really interesting is what we're very lucky to have is in the US, the United States Census Bureau published this data. This is like publicly available stuff. Right. So you are able to see internet sales as a percentage of total retail sales. The US published that data, and the UK published the same data, happens to be with the ONS, the Office of National Statistics.
Yeah.
Not to say when you're drunk. There is a comparison point. Now you could argue, how do they collect the data and all this kind of stuff? But what's really interesting is the UK. So I think there's two compounding factors to why the UK is so much higher. So the average for last year was 28%. In the first half of 2021, where we are right now, it jumped, it's 32%. The US last year, the average was 13.5, 13.6%. This year it's 13, in the first half of 2021, it's 13.5.
So it's not grown.
So it's not grown. So this is me guessing at what's happened without doing any huge consumer study. So the first thing I've seen is that there were quite a few lockdowns in the UK. So we saw quite a big jump at the first lockdown. So when you look at Q1 2020, we were around 20%. By Q2 2020, we were at 32%. So we had a massive jump in people going, not quite, I can't buy petrol, or at this time it was, I can't buy toilet paper. So there was some ridiculous shortage of stuff, but people going online, I need to buy this stuff, panic buying, whatever it is, buying products. Lockdown eased, and then lockdown came in again at the beginning of Q1 2021, and it jumped back to 35%. So it didn't ease. When it eased, it only went back to 30%. So it never went back to the old way of working. And I think lots of barriers, like, for example, people purchasing stuff online, people creating an account online, people getting used to having wish lists, people be able to repurchase stuff or signing up to email lists that had never purchased stuff online before, or had occasionally purchased stuff online before but went to the shops on a Saturday, could no longer do that. So it forced that digital switch, it forced that behavior. And in the US, we fundamentally just haven't seen that. We've seen a steady growth, but it went, comparatively, 11% of people in Q1. It jumped to 15% in Q2, and then it's flatlined at 13% because there hasn't been that lockdown, and obviously the different states and governors have controlled that. So that was one piece, which I thought was just amazing.
That's incredible.
Which I was really surprised because that's more than double the average. So I think that was quite a big surprise to me in terms of, are the brands mature, in that market?
That underlines that underlines that whole piece about the fact that it takes 30 days to create a habit and then 90 days to create a lifestyle change. Is that Britain actually went through that whole change, and now they're not going back, whereas in the US they kind of dabbled in it and then they gave it up and then they've gone back to where they were. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it has, and it's like, people, when we've talked about it, amongst friends and others, do you think it's going to go back to what it was? I'm like, no, I think the people that have changed, and they'll continue. They might not do it at the same rate that they did, but they have broken the back of it.
Yeah.
And some people might find it genuinely more convenient.
Tell me about it. I mean, I have to say, I'm a huge e-commerce convert now because, and I'm not one part of the sort of the main market in the US now, but picking up groceries, just being able to order them on through the computer and then literally driving through, having everything dumped in the car and then driving away again, that beats the hell out of walking around a supermarket once a week.
Totally, absolutely. I mean, I think
I'm a big fan,
and it's amazing. And I might get slated or told off and said, oh, you hate the high street. I don't hate the high street. It's just an observation that that's the behavior that's happening in the UK and the US. I think the other thing, that the reason for the maturity is that the average delivery time, the UK is not a big place, as we both know, in comparison to the US. So the average delivery time in the US is just slightly longer. The UK is when I saw the data, is 1.7 days, and the US is 2 to 3 days. So I think what's interesting is, for products that have the perishable products, or products that, sense of urgency, I need to go and buy a kettle or a toaster, certainly a kettle in the UK for a cup of tea. Sure. I'm just going to go out. I can actually wait, or in the US, I can't afford to wait. I need it now. So I think Instacart has made a massive difference. Don't get me wrong, but I think the sheer size, the geography means that if you are in a town that takes maybe 3 or 4 days to get your product, because you are not on the coasts where the hubs are, or you're not right in the middle where Chicago is, and there's a big logistics center there, that you might just be like, I'm just going to go down the shops and just going to buy it.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that has a lot to do with the sort of political sort of influence of it, because it gave people the option to be able to go in store and go, and risk it if they wanted to. So yeah, I understand, and that just absolutely shows you the impact that politicians can have on the whole, the balance of the economy just through making political decisions like that. So that's a very, very cool observation, and thank you for explaining that. Now, I mean, the reason that you did release these research bites, and I'm just kind of thinking off the bat here. I mean, could we make them available to listeners and stuff? Is that totally
Absolutely.
possible?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, good. Because the reason that you've released these research numbers is, you're making a very particular point, and I wanted to kind of drive that home, because you are on a mission to get this retail, this number, the e-commerce number, to appear on every company's annual report. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I want to see digital revenue as a percentage of total revenue. I mean, it's ludicrous that I'm even saying it, like, because everyone would say, yeah, but everything's digital. Yeah, but the way that we count the money is not. Some stuff's in a till, in a physical place, and some stuff's delivered electronically. But understanding that digital revenue as a percentage of total revenue for all brands in their annual report just provides clear transparency. None of this bullshit. We grew at 200%. We grew digital at 300%. Well, we grew at 400%. But if your baseline is 1%, 300% growth is not very good. I mean, it's great that you've grown, but in the context of a market that might have, a digital share of revenue at 20 or 30%, then that's probably not very good.
Right. Okay. And I mean, so let's assume that, if you were the supreme being and you could have this implemented as a KPI on annual reports, what do you think is going to be the effect of that? What's that going to give companies?
So I actually don't think, weirdly, I'm going to turn it and say, I don't think it's going to give companies anything. I think it's going to give shareholders stuff, and they're going to be able to see what's happening. And they're going to see the contribution that digital delivers, and they're going to see whether that company is investing or not investing in digital. Now, I'll caveat this with, there are certain brands that digital might not need to function. It might not be a role. Buying probably an Airbus or defense stuff probably isn't purchased over the internet. But for a large number of retailers, it is, and it's very much part of their business. And I think that if we can make this information transparent, it clearly shows where the contribution is coming from, not only revenue at top line, but at bottom line in terms of overall net profit. Because quite often, the profit is quite a lot higher in digital because you don't have the overheads. Of course, there's going to be brand effect of kind of stores and how that drives people online and people in the catchment area. There's all sorts of clever analysis you could do. But I think looking at digital revenue as a percentage of total revenue just gives you that complete and utter transparency, no ambiguity, and you'll be surprised. There's a number of brands that don't do it. Number of brands that do. I keep going on. Next do it. The PC World Currys Group do it, but others don't. You have to dig into an annual report. So John Lewis, I couldn't find it in their annual report. I might not have read hard enough. Laura Ashley didn't publish it, but I was able to calculate it before they disappeared. And actually, year on year, when Next were increasing their revenue in digital, Laura Ashley were declining. So it kind of shows that kind of picture. I think that's kind of what I would hope to get out of it.
I can see this sort of triggering a whole sort of bigger spend in digital if that was the case. If those figures were made more transparent, because there's a lot of basically what you're saying is that a lot of the sort of money that's being spent on digital isn't being shown up as as actually having an effect when it surely is.
Exactly, and let's pick on Arcadia Group. Why not? So Philip Green, lots of material there, but let's just pick on that and look at a business that has failed and collapsed, and ASOS have actually bought. And from what I understand, the ASOS founders were ex Arcadia Group, but
talk about the man biting the dog. That's amazing, isn't it?
Don't quote me on that, but that's what I've heard. And I think what's interesting is, you had Arcadia Group I mean, digital's not snuck up on them. I think they were probably, what's an average lease on a building? 5 years, 10 years? Go back 5 years. Were they still doing stores and investing in stores, or were they investing in digital? Did they invest the same level of money in digital that they did in stores? How much is a store fit out? I would probably have thought not.
Yeah. And okay, well, I mean, part of you mentioned it earlier just now in terms of companies that are involved in defense systems and stuff like that. Probably not going to be favoring e-commerce really too terribly much. But I mean, companies with a high average order value, it's easier for them to become more kind of digitally focused. And I mean, in the book, I'm swinging back onto the book here for a second, but you compared L'Oreal against Hershey, and basically you said that even if you have a small order value, things can be repackaged and represented in a different way, like through subscriptions or clubs and stuff like that. I mean, do you think that it's going to need companies to have a different mindset about how they package small value things to be able to sort of to meet this demand now?
Yeah, I really do. So if we just wind the clock back to the early days of like the internet, people were taking brochures and magazines and slapping them onto a website.
Yeah.
And they were pictures. Call it brochureware. They weren't thinking about the fact that you could know where they are, or you knew what time of day it was, or you could make it interactive, or you could play multimedia, or you could, save and remember what they previously looked at and represent that to them. Obviously, that's evolved. And I think lots of direct-to-consumer brands are fundamentally doing that. They go, right, I've got a product, slap it on the website, right, knock on, loads of people are going to buy that product. And I think it does work where you've got a high value item. I mean, you need a proposition around it, but L'Oreal's doing quite well because the average product might cost 40, 50, 60 quid. What's the cost of delivery on that? £2.50? I mean, it's probably easy. Go back down to Hershey's and their poor £2.50 or $2.50, $3.50 chocolate bars now doubled in cost because you've got to get it delivered. And actually, then we've got the delays and everything else. We get it in 3 days' time. I don't think it's going to work like that. So I think what brands need to think about, and lots of them are doing this, right? So Unilever are thinking about it. I haven't physically seen it myself, but having looked at the Unilever website or the Dove website, I was surprised it didn't jump out at me. But subscriptions, we've seen it with Dollar Shave Club and others who Unilever have purchased. But from what I understand, so why don't they start creating? Well, tell you what, here's your Hershey Moments. And what we're going to do is we're going to sell you a subscription service. It's going to be $10 a month. But what you can do is you can personalize the chocolate with people's names on it. And what we can do is we can have unique colors and flavors that you haven't seen anywhere else. I know that Lindt chocolate do that. And that what we're going to do is we're going to do it as packages and gift packages to people throughout the year, or you can have it as a birthday gift or after dinner chocolate or something like that. Now, Hershey's, I appreciate, probably aren't a premium brand, but there are people that I'm sure are Hershey lovers. But that we can then start to take a $2, $3 product and maybe make it into a $5, $10 a month product that you can then start to use in a slightly different way. And that's a random one. You could do the same with P&G. You could do the same with Unilever. You could talk about healthcare, health and body cleansing. I want Unilever to provide me with my monthly. I'm not that dirty, but like my monthly cleansing box. HelloFresh do it. Lots of the other kind of grocery businesses do it. I just think when you've got some brands that have got lots of products in the stable, just pushing them online and putting them on a website and treating them as separate brand websites isn't meeting the need of the consumer. I'm not going to buy a £2.50 Dove underarm thing online when it cost me £2.50 to deliver.
But okay, I'm so glad you got, and I'm going to steer this back onto the world of chocolate because it's much easier to talk about chocolate than it is people's personal bathing habits and stuff like that. But one of the companies that I have been fascinated with for a long, long time that didn't actually make your book in there, but it's been in the news this week, and I'm going to give them a big mention. but it's a UK company, Hotel Chocolat. All right. Full disclosure. I've worked with the company in a previous life, back in the early 2000s, and I actually met Angus Thirlwell in the very early days of the company. And it was really at that point just a direct marketing business. I mean, that's really where it sort of started from. But even then, that company was laser focused on customer segmentation and personalization. They obviously they had a two-pronged strategy. They went into bricks and mortar and online, but I think that kind of insulated them from the effects of the recessions and the downturn of the economy and stuff like that, and through COVID. But the latest news, right, is that Hotel Chocolate's profits went from 2.4 million in 2019 to 10.1 million in 2020, and their online revenues went from 15% to 70%. I mean, isn't that just a demonstration of what you've just been talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And I think that's proof that a traditional business can move online and execute successfully, like not be scared. But I can't because Amazon's there. I can't because Walmart's there. I can't be,
Right.
they've got a brand and, they've taken advantage of it. Absolutely. I think what's super interesting about, I'm going to pick on them, and I keep going on about Next, but only because of their results. They had a catalog business and they were a data-driven organization originally.
Right.
So they had a customer base that they switched online, rather than we don't have a customer base, or we've never collected. So, I don't think everyone's going to use this sentence ever again, but poor old Unilever have never had a direct-to-customer relationship, and therefore it's been really hard and difficult to collect customer data. Now, I'm sure they're doing things to do that now, but it's really interesting with this Hotel Chocolat and Next business. They're a catalog business originally. Right. They had a database. Yeah. They were brilliant at direct marketing. They're bloody brilliant at email. They can now happen to go, well, we probably know quite a lot about our customers. We've got segmentation. Let's flip that online.
That's my point.
Another one, Hotter Shoes. Hotter Shoes.
Yes. Yes.
And they flipped their business to an online only model. Shout out to Ian Watson and Victoria Betts. And I just think, fantastic. I think their numbers, are running at 80% revenue is coming from online, I think. And it's just testament to show, longevity in the brand.
And they are getting into personalization and, these sort of dark manufacturing and sort of, customization of shoes and stuff like that. I mean, that's a very, very visionary business. There. And I think really to kind of wrap this all up in one sort of final bundle is basically that there are certain companies, aren't there, both in the UK and the US, that have always had a mind on data and, and how you can turn it to your advantage and stuff like that. And that's what your book is, is very much, is saying that armed with this data, you can then make a very, very sharp and pointy object out of it, and and really kind of hit the mark. But that it doesn't matter how far evolved you are, that you can always pick this up. You can up your game online, and I think that's the that's the sort of the thing that I've taken away from it. So I mean, in summary, is it too late for anybody that isn't already reviewing their e-commerce to get into gear?
No, I wouldn't say it's too late, but I'll be bold and say it will fail if the leaders of the organization are not commercially focused on digital, and they ignore it, and they continue to ignore it. Now, you might find that certain organizations, car manufacturers, I'm not going to mention any, but car manufacturers are obsessed with brand and doing brand and brand building and brand building. There's absolutely a need for brand building, but to the detriment of everything else. I think doing 100% performance marketing is wrong. Doing 100% brand marketing is wrong, because it's not black and white. I think it's a blend. And I think the organizations that have very brand-led people that literally want to win awards and become famous and to get their brand in front of everyone, that they then don't activate, are not going to win. Now, obviously, that's a very bold thing, because you've got people like Apple and others that are doing that very successfully. But I think they will be missing a trick that if they're not activating online and they're not using online and they're not in front of people and making it visible and easy to buy. So I think the beautiful blend of a trading director with a CFO and a CMO coming together, that's kind of, you know, how I see it. And some of the most successful brands have those people leading them because they are numerate.
Wow. I mean, what surprised you most about all the, you know, the finding of the research that you did for the book? I mean, what's given you the most kind of, what's made your eyebrow go up?
I'll probably say the general, I mean, the brands that are doing it brilliantly get it and they don't need to be taught it. But overall, the general lack of focus on digital has surprised me. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. And actually, the brands that have been most successful in COVID had the most pessimistic most pessimistic forecasts. The brands that invested the least had the most unrealistic forecasts and thought their business was going to boom. And with no brand presence and no SEO focus and no content marketing and no paid search capability or limited, you know, how's that ever going to work? So I think the thing that surprised me most is probably, in a word, delusion. People are deluded that, well, digital's easy. You just turn it on and build a website. And then you just point media at it. And then you just point content at it. But, you know, it's like saying, I'm gonna open a new store and people will just walk in. I'm not going to merchandise. I'm not going to put anything in the shop window. I'm actually not even going to do a store fit out. I'm just going to I'll just use what the landlord gave me, and that'll do. That'll be fine. But I might
leave it in boxes.
That'll do. Help yourself, knock yourself out. But the care and attention that's given to the retail store is probably quite a lot different, purely because historically the contribution from what we've seen, you know, 13, 14% is the average. Well, the majority of revenue is coming from the stores. So that's where your focus is going to be. But all of a sudden, if those things like COVID start to decline, you haven't got any scale. How do you open in a new country? Say you want to reach, you've never operated in France before, and you want to reach every part of France.
Yeah.
And you want to put 250 stores in. How many stores can you open a week? How much does it cost to fit out those stores? Oh, and then next month you want to do Spain, and then Czech Republic, and then you want to do, I don't know, Austria. You know, I'm not saying the website stuff's easy, but I think the ability to scale with a similar team, obviously it needs to be localized, it needs to be translated, obviously there needs to be local execution, of course, with content and media, but the ability to scale that all of a sudden becomes exponential.
Wow. Okay. And so, I mean, anyone reading this book, I mean, what do you want them to get out of it? What's the advantage that the book's going to give them?
So I mean, we've talked about obviously digital revenue being a percentage of total revenue on every annual report, of course, but I want this book to be given to the people that are in the roles working in digital, first and foremost, to educate senior leaders so they understand what the importance of it, the things they should be measuring, and actually for people in the digital jobs to present the right information to leadership. They don't need to see a dashboard, and they certainly don't need to see 450 KPI reports, because obviously the word K means key performance indicator, not every performance metric I've ever had on my life. So they only need to see the things that they need to make decisions on. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is for the same people in digital to help train their junior teams. So their junior teams are actually measuring and holding some of their suppliers to account. I'm not saying the agencies are not doing a good job, but if the agencies are measured on click-through rate and agencies are measured on clicks, do you know what they're going to be optimized against? Clicks and click-through rate. So if you gave them a hard objective and you give them an objective of profitability, reward them for it though, increase their fee fourfold if they deliver a big profit number, you'll probably find an agency will really get behind that. They might not like it because it's risky and they've got to deliver, and they've got to prove their metal, and they have to analyze their results. But the kick. Oh, I'll tell you what. I'll just run this Google Ads campaign. Well, yeah, awesome. I've got a load more clicks. Oh, by the way, none of those people purchased. Yeah, but we delivered a lot of clicks to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously the other part to it is, I guess, the overarching thing is to have the digital revenue figure included in annual reports as well, which I think is that's a sitter that has to be done, surely.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, I mean, what's I think it's kind of I would like to sort of to be able to round this off. I mean, we could have gone for hours on this because there is so much content in this book, and it's so valuable that I would stress that people get a copy of it and go through it, and then just map where your business is or where your clients' businesses are, because this is going to help anyone in new business as well. This isn't just marketing, because this helps tune sales. It does everything. I mean, as far as I can see, this is and I said it right at the very top, this is a Bible. This is a sort of a book that you need to have in your arsenal when you're actually sort of plotting out the the sort of the sales and marketing projections. So but great stuff anyway. But look, I want to move on and just have get a little bit of fun and for the last part of this, and I just want to find out how do you what's your kind of preferred method of relaxing these days?
I don't know if it's relaxing, but car racing, motor racing, is but it's not that relaxing, but it is a preferred method of not working. So racing cars at absurd speeds around circuits.
Wow, what kind of cars?
Saloon cars mainly. So a mixture of stuff, big and small, but at the moment happens to be a good old-fashioned BMW M3. So the good old reliable German saloon car.
Fantastic. Great stuff. And are you into any races? Have you got any races coming up or something?
Not for the rest of this year, no. So we're out of action with a painful engine rebuild at the moment, which is painful, costly, and tedious. So no, not right now. But
and you've got a team. You've got a race team.
Yeah. So there's three of us that race, and then two guys that help us run the car.
Oh wow, excellent. Well, give them a shout if you want. You're more than welcome to.
Of course, Nick Starkey, who doesn't do digital, so that will be for him. Kevin Maxted, Matt Maxted are the kind of the regular gang, and they're the boys that kind of come to us, come with us. Andy and Dan are the boys that kind of help us as well on the side.
Good stuff. Well, see, that's nice to know. So I always like to try and find, because people always have very interesting lives outside of the profession that they do. So anyway, all right. Well, look, now we've got the three famous questions that we put everybody through. When you're racing around the track, I guess you probably don't have the stereo on, but if you're listening to music in the car, otherwise, what's your kind of what's the track you always love to listen to?
So I've got to choose a chaotic one because I just absolutely love this. It's a bit old school, but it's Prodigy Out of Space. I just think it's just motivating, isn't it? Everyone normally dances to it, so it's just it's a bit of a chaotic one.
I love that track. I was listening to it. It's a fantastic track because it's just such a, it stops and then starts again. It starts a different track all the way through. It's just bonkers. It's a bonkers piece of music. So congratulations, and Keith Flint, we'll miss him. He was
oh yeah, absolutely,
hell of a performer. But so yeah, good pick for that one. And got a favourite book you like to add to the Zoom bookshelf?
So this is a bit of a morbid one, actually, which is the Alive story. The one, the story of the Andes survivors.
Oh yes, yes.
Which I think was written by Piers Paul Reed, and talked about. There was a film made about it, but it talked about these South American rugby players. They are flying over the Andes. They get caught in the Andes and they have to escape. And it's it's pretty horrendous. I mean, there's questionable morals around cannibalism, and does that should they or shouldn't they have done it? Did they do it? They did it to survive. Is that the right thing they should have done? Questionable, but yeah, it's kind of
I've read it. It's a phenomenal story. It's
the power of the human will. It's just will to carry on. It's just insane.
And and how you deal with it afterwards. The not only do you have survivor guilt, but you've got lots of other moral hurdles that you've now created as well. So that's a great story. Good recommendation. I like that. Thank you very much. And right, so this one, what 3 words? Now, I did this last week with Andy Nairn at Lucky Generals, and I said to him, what 3 words? And he came back with 1. And I asked you, what 3 words? How many did you come back with?
4.
Nobody gets the rule.
I had to.
So what?
Stubborn, obstinate, and incapable of reading or listening. But no, I didn't come up with it. So the 3 are energetic.
Yeah.
You might replace with hyperactive, but energetic, enthusiastic, and blindly optimistic. So it's got hyphen in there, so it's blindly optimistic.
Well, as I did with Andy as well, I had to take it into my and I had to take control of this because the What 3 Words engine doesn't deal with 4, because it's clues in the title. But anyway, so I actually edited it down to energetic, enthusiastic, and optimist. Okay, or optimistic. I gave myself 2 things, and guess what? You're our first splashdown. All right, you're the first one that's actually landed in the water. All right, the energetic, enthusiastic, and optimist. All right, puts you in Zambia. Right, in Lake Mweru. Right, at the northern tip of Lake Mweru. Right, which interestingly is Bantu for Lake Mweru. Right, so it's actually Lake. Right. But you're in the sort of the Zambia National Park. You're right on the border there. But if you edit your 3 words to optimistic, right, you end up in the Philippine Sea.
So it's a crash down either way, isn't it?
Yeah, but you're in the middle of nowhere in the sea. But anyway, Lake Mweru. All right. Here's a bit of trivia for you about it. It was discovered. I say discovered, it was already there, but it was officially discovered by David Livingstone, Dr. Livingstone.
Oh, wow.
And because it's just up the road from the other big lake. I can't remember which one it was now. But anyway, from the other big one that he discovered. It's that Lake Mweru is known for its longfin tilapia fish, freshwater.
Interesting.
Well, there you go. No, it's not really, but I just thought I'd...
Well, it's not salmon. Ha, ha, ha.
Ha ha. Well, I'm glad you said that because I avoided that. I thought there's no way he's gonna let me get away with a joke like that. So that's fair enough. That's great. Thank you very much, Ben. This has been it's been a very educational show. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I know you're not very well as well, so I appreciate you sort of getting out of your dressing gown and slippers and coming and talking to us. So very much appreciate it. And the book is called Your Numbers Up. What's coming up for Crank now? Have you got any big events in the future, in the not too distant future?
I mean, I think there's another book in the waiting that probably focus on B2B, but I haven't started it yet. I think the thing that I'd quite like to do next, other than obviously we're working with clients and doing interesting stuff with data and marketing, but I think I'm tempted to audit a few brands and just do some comparisons of a sector and see who's doing it well and who's doing it not in the market. Just to kind of give some examples.
Excellent. So if anyone's interested in talking to you, what's the best way for them to get you?
Ben at We Are Crank, or on LinkedIn, Ben Salmon. Either one of those are very easy.
Perfect.
Easy ways.
The book is called Your Numbers Up. I did actually publish a photograph of it on my LinkedIn profile not so long ago because I thought it's a fantastic looking thing. Getting a grip on data and measurement to accelerate your e-commerce sales. And listen to this. That's what it sounds like when it hits your desk. It's fantastic. It's a great book, Ben. Thank you very much indeed. And I look forward to catching up with you again soon, and wishing you the best of luck and good health and happiness. And I'll speak to you soon. All the best.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for inviting me, Keith. Appreciate it.
Bye, Ben.
Thanks. See ya. Bye.